KLEK LP Jonesboro, the voice of Arkansas Minority Advocacy Council. It's now time for Community Conversations, a program focusing on the people working to make the Jonesboro community a better place, while offering viewpoints from all sides of the issues. The views expressed in this program are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect the views of KLEK 102.5 FM, the voice of Arkansas Minority Advocacy Council, or our underwriters or sponsors.
Good morning to everyone out there. Happy Tuesday. It is June 13th, 2017. So I'm your host for today on Community Conversations, Quabila Harden, and I have two very special guests in the studio with me today. I have Dr. Gregory Hanson from Arkansas State University. Good morning.
Good morning. It's good to be here, Quabila.
And I have Mrs. LaDawn Fuhr. Did I say that right? Fuhr. I'm so sorry.
It's okay.
She is studying. Well, she's trying to go for she's going for a PhD in heritage studies.
In heritage studies.
Okay. Let me get these microphones turned up here. Okay. All right. Is that better? Can you hear me? Okay.
I can hear you fine.
Okay. All right, so today we're going to be talking about an upcoming event called Connecting Heritage Studies in the U.S., a consortium. Now, okay, when I saw this, I'm like, okay, it went a little bit over my head at first. I understand what culture is. I understand a little bit about what heritage is, but I want you all to explain how these two concepts go together and what can people expect at this consortium. But before we get into that, I would love for you to tell the listeners and viewers a little bit more about you, what you do, and we'll transition into this event.
Okay, well, thank you. My position as a professor of folklore and English at Arkansas State, and I've been here for 14 years. I really enjoy it. There's a lot of great opportunities to teach folklore and connect it to Heritage at our university. I'm also affiliated with the PhD program in Heritage Studies, which has been ongoing now for over 15, 16 years. Yeah, we're one of the few PhD programs in Heritage Studies in the U.S., actually the only standalone Heritage Studies program that we're aware of in the U.S.
That's amazing.
Although heritage is growing as a discipline in Europe and Asia and other places too.
That's amazing.
But my PhD is in folklore from Indiana University.
Okay.
And in folklore, we look at people's traditions and their cultures and their everyday life as part of history and heritage. And we develop ways of studying it and doing your typical scholarship in folklore, but we also do a lot of what we call public folklore.
Okay.
And this involves going into a community and finding the historical and cultural resources that are linked to people's traditions and communities, and then develop ways to preserve it, but also interpret and educate people about their folk culture.
That's amazing. And, sadly, there are some things that are diminishing from our society that, have historical value. And some of this younger generation, some of them, don't appreciate some of the things that we've been exposed to, the I say simples, the tangible items, and
Right.
the stories of each ethnicity, each culture, each heritage,
Yeah.
And I hate to see that get lost.
I like the way you're talking about that because you're really getting in at the heart of why folklorists get interested in heritage. We get interested in the parts of the past that are maintained as contemporary realities in everyday life.
Okay.
Sometimes with a strong presence, there's folklore all around us that's part of everyday life. Things like the typical foods you might eat during special occasions and things like that, all learned by tradition, very interesting to folklorists. But also things that are maybe fading out or not as common as they would have been years ago. Been interested in blues ever since I was young, and
Okay.
I guess I'm still young, but I've been interested in blues early on, and I was just fascinated with the idea of the blues being this vibrant musical tradition that's really important, especially in the African American community, but has worldwide influence. And I got really interested in the blues in the Delta. And if you get down to the Delta and even into other areas of Mississippi and Arkansas, you can see that the older styles of blues are still hanging on in certain ways. Like there's the fife and drum tradition with the Rising Star Fife and Drum out of northern Mississippi in Centovia, and that goes way back to Revolutionary War period era. And there's still, in the African American community, these black groups that continue to play fife and drum music. So we've got that with what you're talking about, maintaining that heritage, and the young woman in charge of the group is just very proud to be carrying on the legacy that she learned from her grandfather and passed way down the line that way. So I think that's an important part of it. It ties in what you're talking about of the intangible heritage, the music, the things that you can't really put your finger on, but is about performance and artistry. And I think that's really one of the things that fascinates folklorists about this.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. So,
well, I can't wait to get more into this discussion. I'm going to let Mrs. LaDawn give us an intro. Even though she was here once before, at that time we were talking about the Winter Wonderland. We're way past winter now.
It's opened. It was a great success. I am a Heritage Studies PhD student and graduate assistant. I work with Dr. Hanson and Dr. Laura Umansky, who's the director of our PhD program. I escaped the corporate world and went to Plan B. I've always wanted to pursue my PhD. Ever since I came back to Jonesboro 8 years ago, I was interested in this program. And I'm finishing up my first complete year after the summer session's over. And what Dr. Hanson said, it's for those reasons. It's to my main interest in what I'm doing my dissertation work on is the preserving and protecting and also promoting the Delta regional roots music and looking at also the commodification without exploitation, like in small towns, like they're doing in some areas now. And all those tethers that go together, there are so many people, we think of artists that are just like part of our family, but you go into other areas and people really don't know them. So I hope to spread that message further and get the message across. And this program and like this consortium, the Delta Symposium, which happened 2 months ago, these things are so important to students. I'm here as a student today from the student perspective. These are so important for students. And even though I've had a professional career, and Dr. Hanson knows this, I'll be gushing about, I had the greatest conversation with this person or that person. And ASU allows those opportunities for free on campus for the students and for the community.
So let's talk about what disciplinaries fall under heritage studies. What types of not courses, maybe majors or?
Sure. A lot of our heritage studies students come from an interest in history and public history. So the historians will do the same things that folklorists do, that they'll do academic research and write books and articles on history, but there's also an engagement of historians in the public sphere. So what they'll do is they'll document local history and they'll work in historical societies or archives or historic preservation, helping to preserve old buildings and old sites and put that together. So we get a lot of interest in historians coming into the program too. Other disciplines that also are connected to heritage in different ways will also recognize that there's an interest in what we call the usable past. How do we find use from the past and make that meaningful in the present? I think it's one of the big questions in heritage. So that'll show up in disciplines like literary criticism, media studies, anthropology, sociology, and other fields like that of people interested in how the past is just an important part of contemporary ways of understanding connections between history and culture. One of my professors, Henry Glassy, I think had a really interesting way of talking about these connections where he argues that there's one past, and when you think of the past ultimately is kind of unknowable. You can't go back in the time machine and really know exactly what happened, but it's a historian's job to make sense out of the past. So you have one past, but you have a lot of different histories because everybody's looking at the past from different perspectives. So there's one past but many different histories. Kind of a quotable quote from Henry Glassy. And to me, I think heritage falls into that because heritage is that dynamic of figuring out why that connection between your idea of history and the past makes sense to you in the present. So the differences I see is that the historian's trying to figure out what happened and why. And the heritage studies people are taking a whole range of what have people learned from all these disciplines, being very open to connect with other disciplines and get their ideas and figure out why is that important and meaningful for us in modern day life, and how do we think about this as a legacy that we want to push into the future. So it's very much focused on thinking of the values and the meaning that we make out of these connections between history and culture.
I'm glad you brought that up. We were talking a little bit off air about, why is it important? I want you to highlight why it's important to continue on, not necessarily traditions, but continue telling the stories, collecting items, passing them on from generation to generation. I know within my family, my grandmother and aunt used to quilt, but that's something that's kind of dying out in some families. I don't own any homemade quilts anymore, not from my family. My mother tried to teach me, but she passed away before I really got to learn. And there's some other things that I saw growing up that my family just doesn't do anymore.
Right.
So I would love to see more families holding on to things that makes them uniquely them.
Yeah. If I could be a little professorial, put one of our students on the spot, I'd be interested in LaDawn's perspective on that. What do you see as that engagement of preservation?
Well, the personal from that standpoint, but also my own personal experience is I'm also involved with the ASU Museum, and I was doing that before I became a student. I'm on the advisory council, and we are building a rockabilly exhibit. And and we've been working on it for a long time, and we had 2 rockabilly concerts, Rockabilly Boogie Fest. And when I would talk to people about it, that would just glaze over.
What is rockabilly?
Yeah, they didn't understand. Then when I would start talking about the mechanics of it, the layers of it as I call it, they would start to understand it. They could connect those dots between rockabilly and what is rock and roll and the roots of music now, which really got me started on my quest to change that mentality. But from my perspective, it is exactly what y'all are talking about. It is taking something from that is past and putting it into the perspective of the future, the present and the future. And that's how I look at heritage.
Alrighty. So let's talk about a little bit about how did this consortium? Am I saying it consortium or
consortium?
Consortium. I'm
Well, it took
sorry.
me a while to get your name right, so.
I'm sorry. But by the end of the show, we'll all be saying the right thing.
These academic tongue twisters.
Okay, so this consortium, which is called Connecting to Heritage Studies in the U.S., how did it come to be? How did the discussion even come up to say, okay, let's bring something like this to Jonesboro or to Arkansas State University?
That's a good question. The movement toward heritage studies has shown up in the United Kingdom and Australia and other European nations too, not just the UK. And it's coming out of museum studies and an interest in what they do with their heritage, which is typically linked to things like archaeological resources and the older historic preservation of buildings, and they're expanding it into the intangibles too, like we were looking at. But you've got that going on since at least the 1980s, and it's coalescing around different interests of knowing there's a need to do these public interpretations of history and culture. So you have the Heritage Studies movement, and the international movements are pretty big in heritage, so we pull a lot of things from scholarship from around the world. And they formed the Association of Critical Heritage Studies about a decade ago, and they meet every 2 years, and I had the great good fortune to spend a week in Montreal last summer at it.
That was nice.
That was wonderful. It's nice as an American to be in the minority, because you're there with all these international scholars, and you see what's going on in Scotland or Korea or all around the world, and to see the whole range of differences and similarities in the issues that they face in heritage. But I have a friend who works in the Library of Congress in the American Folklife Center, and her name is Michelle Stefano, and she is from New York originally, I believe, but she went to England to get her PhD in Heritage Studies. And Michelle is one of the chairs of the U.S. chapter within this international organization. So we had a little meeting as part of that conference in Montreal, and we said, what can we do to coalesce an interest in heritage among Americans and to look at what we're doing in American universities with a developing heritage movement. And as I want to do, I volunteered and said, I'll help host a conference. So I've been working with Michelle and some of her other colleagues and friends, and we've been planning this for about a year. And what we thought we'd do is to make it really interdisciplinary and work on the idea of connecting to heritage. And what we wanted to do is to build up these connections of people with an interest in heritage from around the U.S. and then figure out how it can connect to the wider Association of Critical Heritage Studies. And we thought what we need to do is have one day of the conference be connected with scholars and researchers and local public historians who have an interest in heritage and doing interesting things, but then they can tell people in other disciplines what they're doing. So you get a chance if somebody interested in digital heritage and computers and digital archives can talk to maybe someone in an English department who has a literary background. So the idea is to get a lot of good conversation going on Friday to show how it's a real interdisciplinary interest, but it's unified around themes of understanding history and culture and those things. And we also thought we'd have a conference session too. So on Saturday, we have conference papers that'll be given, and we hope to have some kind of publication coming out of that to expand it to really show that there is a dimension to heritage studies in the U.S. that can connect with wider ways of understanding heritage as a movement that's worldwide. And then we're very fortunate to have Laura Jane Smith come in. She's an Australian and started out as an archaeologist, and she really built up heritage studies in Australia, just a major scholar and presenter, and she's going to give our keynote. And we're very fortunate to have her here because I'll be interested in suggestions she has for the Heritage Studies program at Arkansas State.
So is this the first of this kind of event to happen in Arkansas State?
We have symposia, and we've used heritage as a theme for our Delta Symposium, but this is the first one that's heritage studies per se. And we thought it would make a lot of sense to root it in our doctoral program because it's a great opportunity, as LaDawn mentioned, for students to come and meet some of the writers they've read. I've had some of the students saying, oh, you've got Laura Jane Smith, you've got Michelle Stefano coming in. I've read their work. I'm using my dissertation. So it's like, great, you can meet them in person.
Yeah, there's going to be like a big fan club, like, oh my God.
So you have heritage groupies?
Yeah, it is. Well, in fact, I was helping put together the book list, and I'm doing my own coursework this summer. Okay. And I was looking for textbooks, and two of the participants coming in, I saw those books and I grabbed them, and I need these this summer, as well as some Dr. Hanson recommended. But that was exciting, to be able to say, I'm using your book and I'm listening to you and have that one-on-one. It's just a great opportunity for a student.
Well, that's one of the things I really like about conference and symposium consortiums is that it does make it real and alive, and you're seeing that what you read in the textbook or the scholarship is one representation of people in the discipline doing the best they can to explain their interest to others.
Yes.
And that's important, and as a student it's important to get the background on that because they grade you on those sorts of things. But you're developing your own idea as a student of what you want to do and what your interests are. But there's a wider community of scholars and people writing that I think is real important to touch base with, because people don't just write books and articles by themselves. They're very much connected with the work of other scholars and writers who've come before, and there's a whole conversation they're having with other people. And I think if you can make that conversation real by bringing in researchers and grad students and other people who are really engaged in this and have talked to each other, it's only going to help your own scholarship and to help your own research and just create a lot of great ideas from that. So I think that theme of connecting is really working out very well.
Oh, wow. And I see on the list that you provided for the lineup for Friday and Saturday, you have individuals coming from all over the country, well, the United States, along with Laura Jane Smith from Australia. Is she the only international person you have coming?
She is, yes.
Okay.
Yeah. It's interesting. She's spending time in Israel right now doing research, and she's flying from Tel Aviv to Memphis, and she'll be here just for a few days, and then she's flying back to Australia, so she's literally going around the world. So that's great.
It'll be, this is a great honor to have. I mean, that she's willing to, okay, I'm going to make a stop. I'm going to honor your request to attend this event.
Absolutely. You see the investment in it because she was really foundational in creating the Association of Critical Heritage Studies, and she is a mentor to a number of people who have helped to organize the conference and put it together. So they're recognizing that we really need to get something going on in the U.S. and to connect with the work that's going around the world. So I think that really matters. One of the things that shows up is that when you look a lot of the writing on heritage, maybe coming from the United Kingdom, for example, what you see is a real interest in the older archaeological sites. You see an interest in preserving buildings and sites that have a little bit older history than what typically is preserved here.
Okay.
Like, we get real excited if a building's 100 years old, and if it's 50 years old, it's eligible for the National Register. In Europe, it's like, that's just a few decades for them.
50 years?
Yeah.
Then you have, in other countries, they have buildings that have been there for hundreds of years.
Absolutely, yeah.
Wow.
And they're doing great things with that, and they have all kinds of good heritage preservation issues, but the part that I think America has something to offer is we've got an infrastructure set up within state, federal, and local governments to support these heritage resources through things like National Endowment for the Arts, National Endowment for Humanities, or different trust programs. And we've got people going into communities that really know how to document these local resources and then present and interpret back to the public. There's a lot of interest around the world in how we do that with cultural conservation, public folklore, historic preservation, and a whole range of things. So I think that's what's kind of exciting for someone like Laura Jane Smith to come in and see how that's taking place.
Okay, all right. We're going to be right back at these.
You're listening to Community Conversations on KLEK 102.5 FM. We'll be right back.
Why do we still get frustrated in our marriage? I'm Mark Merrill with today's Family Minute. My wife Susan and I just celebrated 24 years of marriage. After more than 2 decades together, you'd think we'd always have smooth sailing, but we don't. We both work really hard to have a great marriage. So, why can't we get it all together? It's our selfish nature. We want things from each other that we don't always get. She wants me to cherish, affirm, and encourage her. I want her physical affection. So, what should we do? First, we need to remember that we don't always get what we want when we want it. Second, we need to stay focused on serving and giving selflessly and sacrificially to each other. Remember, your family first.
Hello, this is your girl Allie J, and I want everyone to join me for Kick It With a Cancer, my birthday bash going down June 23rd at Legends Barbecue Smokehouse, 1025 West Johnson Avenue, across from Riceland Foods in Jonesboro. This party is going to be an all-ages affair from 7 to 10 o'clock p.m., and I'm letting all cancers in free until 8:30 p.m. with ID. Music by DJ Mr. Chew. To celebrate my birthday, I'm going to make it easy on your pockets, too. Just $5 to get in for adults, $3 if you're 13 and 17, and kids 12 and under get in free. I told you it's an all-ages family affair, and you know you want to be there, right? And just because it's my birthday, I'm giving away presents to some lucky guests. So come kick it with a cancer June 23rd at Legends Barbecue Smokehouse, 1025 West Johnson Avenue from 7 to 10 p.m. This is a KLEK fundraiser.
The Mu Omicron Lambda chapter of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated was established on January 1st, 1977, originally serving Blytheville, Arkansas, and now serving Jonesboro, Blytheville, Osceola, Marion, and West Memphis, Arkansas. Today, the chapter continues to make an impact by focusing on Alpha's national community outreach initiatives such as My Brother's Keeper, A Voteless People is a Hopeless People, Go to High School, Go to College, Project Alpha, Boy Scouts, and the March of Dimes. The Mu Omicron Lambda chapter of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated is committed to Alpha's mission of developing leaders, promoting brotherhood and academic excellence, while providing service and advocacy to the community. More information about the Mu Omicron Lambda chapter of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated is available at MOL Alphas on Facebook or via email at molalphas@gmail.com.
The Epic Center, located at 1899 Hasbrook Road, County Road 333, is Jonesboro's newest venue for entertainment for the entire family. They offer an auditorium with theater-style seating for up to 1,100 guests, a large stage, professional lighting and sound, dressing rooms, concessions, and more. Available for weddings, concerts, pageants, birthday parties, showers, and more. Booking and other information is available at Epic Center Jonesboro on Facebook, epiccenterjonesboro.com, and at 870-530-5841.
Support for KLEK is brought to you by
Fullness of Joy Ministries, 2120 Thorn Street, Jonesboro, under the direction of Bishop Adrian Rogers and co-pastor Susan Rogers. www.fjministries.org.
And now back to Community Conversations on KLEK 102.5 FM.
Welcome back to Community Conversations on KLEK 102.5 FM. We're speaking with Dr. Gregory Hanson from Arkansas State University and Mrs. LaDawn
Fuhr. It's okay.
Okay, we're going to all get some names right before this day is over. I apologize.
That's okay.
And she is here in a student capacity today. She is getting her PhD in heritage studies. What particular area or field? What falls under heritage studies? What is your, I guess, area of interest or specialty?
Well, actually all of it,
Okay.
but I'm doing my research and my dissertation work on the cultural heritage of Delta Roots music and its implications into the markets, its implications into the tethers it has into the genre, all genres.
Now, can you explain to help us understand, when you're working on a PhD in a particular area, it doesn't flow like your normal undergrad classes, does it?
Well, we have a set of core courses that we do have to take. I felt fortunate because I came in with a really good idea of what I wanted to do, so therefore all my coursework is geared. I look at every piece of work I do as something that hopefully will be edited and go into my dissertation. So from that perspective, for me, it's flowing very, very nicely, actually. But the core courses are designed to give us a broad range of tools and thought processes to continue in whatever direct area we're looking at. We have a lot of different interests within our students.
So what did you want to do in particular once you finish your degree?
When I grow up. What I want to do, LaDawn Phase 3. I want to work within preserving cultural heritage, specifically in the music and the arts, because that's where my background is. My background lies in that area, in media as well, and just look at that. I also would like to teach, whether adjunct or in some way. Yeah, I've always wanted to teach.
All right, we have a couple of Facebook shout-outs. Dr. Sharice Jones-Francis, good morning. And Miss I Am Queen Purtle also says good morning. Good morning to you all. Thank you for watching. I wonder, maybe I'm going to stray just a little bit. Since you mentioned Delta Music and Culture and Heritage, have you had a chance to visit the Delta Culture Center down in West Helena?
I'm going in a couple of weeks,
all right.
Actually. Kim Williams is going to be my spirit guide. I've tapped her to help me down there, and actually it's part of my coursework I'm doing, so it's on my agenda.
All right, so I think you will really enjoy.
I think so too.
That center, they put a lot of work and effort into, again, preserving those tangible items, but still also having the written history of different things that have happened in that area and how it all links. You know, how the Delta links together. I wish more people would take the opportunity to go and visit and support the center, because it ties a lot, not just that West Helena area, but pretty much the Delta, the whole Delta region. It ties it all in together.
I'm excited. I'm looking forward to going.
The Department of Heritage in Arkansas is really active, and we're fortunate to have people with the state's archives come in, and they're going to do a presentation on what they're doing with the Rohr camp that was resettling Japanese people during World War II.
Okay.
And they've done this amazing digital presentation where they recreate imagery from the camp and give you an experience through it. Because if you go to war, you don't really see much of anything but just commemorative plaques and open space. And they'll be presenting on Friday and talking about the whole movement of heritage and cyberspace and digital things. So that should be real exciting. And a good chance to connect with wider interests in heritage throughout the state, such as the other terrific work with the Delta and the Delta sites, both in the state but in our university itself. It's doing great things in the Delta.
That's wonderful. Oh, wow. So
I'd be remiss in my duties if I didn't mention the good work of the heritage sites within our university. We have the heritage sites programs. We also have heritage studies. And Paula Miles and Ruth Hawkins are just major contributors to the heritage sites in Tyrone, Lake Village, and Dice, and on up in Piggott. And they're going to show what they're doing with their work of preserving these sites, but also using them as a base for research and documenting the local history of cultural traditions and interpreting it to the public. And Ruth was just inducted into the Arkansas Women's Hall of Fame, so she's going to be
I didn't know that was a
honored
thing.
with that. It's a thing. So we've got this wonderful partnership between these heritage sites that they're coordinating there and the PhD program. So as LaDawn's mentioning, it's a chance to go in and really connect what's going on in these communities to what they're learning in the classroom. And I like the way that graduate students have made just terrific contributions to doing the research at the sites, but also education, interpretation, and a lot of support. It's a good part of the education that they have.
You know, I've not gotten directly involved. I see a lot of comments on Facebook, different posts, and people are talked about when it comes to wealth, income, jobs, security, things of that nature. And some people kind of just throw out there, we should get a degree in engineering, or you should get a degree in something that pays more. But me, and they're like, some people make comments about people that study liberal arts, and they don't realize there's so many careers that fall under liberal arts, and so people try to knock these type of studies, but they are very important. Everyone can't be an engineer or a scientist, to a certain degree. But these type of careers are very important because they help preserve our history, and it helps other people in other career fields do what they do as well.
Right.
Have an understanding of where we come from, where we go, hopefully where we're going, where we are now, people, places, and things. It helps make those connections. Mm-hmm. It keeps our history alive and going. I don't know. I'm sorry, I'm not going to get on my soapbox today.
Now, to that point, I have nothing but liberal arts degrees.
Okay.
I have a BFA. I have with almost a double major in communication from ASU. I have a master's in public administration, and now I'm getting this degree. I've never felt in a non-competitive vein. I've always been very competitive because I had such a broad education, because it covered so many areas that I could speak, and I was a debater. I could speak to anything or anybody. And so as a student, again, yes, if I had a child, I'd be pushing them to a liberal arts and humanities degree because of, like you said, it's just so far-reaching and there are so many different elements.
One of the areas where this plays out to me is in the tech fields too, because there's this interest in digital heritage, and that'll be a subject of some conversation going on there. We have some really interesting presenters along that line, including a professor at the University of Central Florida, Natalie Underberg-Goad, who teaches connections to the media and heritage. And what you have going on is there's this real interest in the internet, of course, and developing ways of presenting things on your platform, but there's a real interest in the content, and there's kind of a little saying of content is king on the internet. Think about the content that they want, and oftentimes it's very much connected to history and culture in whatever way it's presented. And it's just a really interesting opportunity for people to understand these resources and understand the dynamics of history and culture to connect with the tech people through this. There's quite a few people involved in different tech fields of giving content to media people, and doing pretty well with it.
It's amazing. All right, so let's go through some more of the lineup of the consortium. Okay.
You got it.
Okay.
We'll be
We're going to get this down packed today. Okay. So this event starts on Friday, June 16th, which is this Friday, at the Carl R. Ring Student Union in the Mockingbird Room, which is on the 3rd floor. Now, it opens up, I guess you say, at 8:45 for coffee and pastries. 9 a.m. is the welcome by Michelle Stefano, American Folklore Center. What is ACHSUS?
Association Critical Heritage Studies.
Okay.
So she's the chair of our U.S. chapter.
Okay, so she's here at Arkansas State.
No, she's in Washington.
In Washington,
Yeah,
okay.
she's got an interesting background because she got the degree in Heritage Studies, and then she went to work in Baltimore and coordinated programs on the traditional arts in Baltimore. And then she just, within the past 6 months or so, got a really nice position at the Library of Congress.
That's amazing.
She's our bridge between heritage studies and folk life, historic preservation, and
Okay.
a real important contributor here. Glad to work with her.
That's wonderful. Okay, so let's go on to the 10 to 12 o'clock time frame. Roundtable 1, Connecting to Heritage Studies, Theory and Practice. So tell us a little bit more about that one.
The basic format that we've asked people to do is to have people from different disciplines come in and give a short overview, 8 to 10 minutes or so, of what they do in their field and how they see it as being relevant to their interest in heritage studies. So people like Eric Gilbert teaching a heritage studies program, he'll be there.
Okay.
And other people in other departments that are doing heritage-related things, like Christina Krebs is an anthropologist and has written very well and very interesting pieces on heritage and anthropology. So what they'll be doing is a little overview of how, in the first section, it connects to history, public history, museum studies, historic preservation. And once they've done the introductions, we're going to moderate these panels. And we'll have other people in the audience ask questions and get discussion among the panelists to come up with an idea of, well, what is it that's maybe characteristic of interest in heritage in the United States as it relates to what's going on in history and historical related disciplines.
Okay.
So that's what we'll be doing in that first session.
Okay. And then we're going to move on from 12 to 1:15, which is Roundtable 2, Connecting to Heritage Studies, Theory and Practice. Again, so how is this one, under this, for this roundtable, I see it includes anthropology, public folklore, ethnomusicology,
Yep.
environmental studies, ecofeminism, and literary criticism. Okay,
That's right. You
You're
got
gonna
it.
have to explain.
I'll give you back on this. All right. When we came up with this one, we thought that the first session is a little bit geared toward material culture,
Okay.
things that people are working with. There's overlap between the immaterial culture and material culture, but in historic preservation, there's a real interest in bricks and mortar and preserving structures and the built environment. And you oftentimes see this showing up in museums that tend to be very artifact-centered.
Okay.
Okay, that's changing a little bit because they get more interested in the intangibles within the field of history, but there's a strong emphasis on the built environment in that area. So in the second one, what we thought we'd do is build from that and shift a little bit more into what's termed intangible cultural heritage, or just ICH. You get to talking about ICH and people think, why are you seeing H's? And it's like intangible cultural heritage. But these are dealing more with kind of the idea of memory of place. Music would be intangible. Story, anything that is ephemeral but still makes meaning to our lives around us. And you can see anthropologists being very interested in the intangibles of culture. So we have an anthropologist talking about how anthropologists get interested in heritage, how that's become really big in anthropological discourse. With public folklore, that's what I was mentioning before, going in and looking at the traditional expressive culture of communities and then presenting to people in exhibits or documentary media or festivals or concerts or recordings, any number of things like that. So we've got a long history of that going way back, really, to the 19th century before in America. And we're going to have some people talk about that from their perspectives. Ethnomusicology is looking at music as it relates primarily to grassroots community level expression. So in ethnomusicology, you're studying the music that's part of community life that may or may not be part of the classical or high style music tradition. Okay, so in ethnomusicology, it would be the idea of people would be interested in local and regional ethnic traditions like the blues, or my particular interest in fiddling and old-time bluegrass music would be very much in line with ethnomusicology.
Okay.
So we look at the idea of how ethnomusicologists have gone into communities and document, record them, do radio shows on it, or any other kind of representation of music, and how that's a big part of things.
Oh, wow.
So we have a big action on that. When you think about it, ethnomusicology really is central to music, because the majority of music that's performed around the world is music that really isn't enshrined in the canon of classical music or fine arts traditions. I love classical music and the fine arts tradition. I attend concerts like that, but there's sort of a joke among ethnomusicologists that the classical musicians are lost when the lights goes out because they can't read the notes on the page. So many times when we're thinking ethnomusicology, we're looking at musicians who aren't necessarily paper trained.
They just know how to play the instrument.
Yeah.
They know what sounds good.
Yeah. And you know, I'm not saying one's necessarily better than the other, but there's a interesting perspective that when we think of music, we tend to have very limited ideas of what it is, and ethnomusicology is a reminder that there's a lot of other music traditions out there that are really interesting and vibrant and important to look at. So we'll look at that. With the environmental studies, ecofeminist literature, that's kind of brought together a whole range of things. And we've got Brian Moore, who teaches at Arkansas State, presenting there. He's teaching courses that connect literary ideas and especially movements of American romanticism and Americans' interest in the environment to how we're making sense of the world around us and expressing it through literature. So I like the idea of bringing in the literary side to it because I think it's really interesting to get scholars in fields that aren't just ethnomusicology, history, folklore, ethnomusicology into the conversation. And Brian has really interesting things to say. He's written very interesting books about the connection of the environment, especially from women's perspectives and women's experiences. So bringing that side into it is kind of a big part of his work.
Okay.
I think it should be an interesting discussion. There's a whole range of people here to talk about.
Yes, sir. Okay. Oh, no, I'm sorry. Okay, 12 to 1:15 was lunch. I apologize. This roundtable 2 will be from 1:30 to 3:30. I apologize for that, misstating that. In roundtable 3, which is Cultural Heritage and Media, 3:45 to 5:15. This includes archives, library sciences, and digital heritage. I'm sure that Ms. Brandy Hodges from the library will be very interested.
Yeah, to talk to Brandy. Yeah, we've worked on some different projects. I think she'd be real interested in how it plays out.
Okay, and I see you have professors from University of Illinois, University of Central Florida, and another one from Arkansas State, Mary Dunn. What is her?
Actually, Mary Dunn works with the State Archives out of Little Rock. So she's on the team that has worked with digitizing things. It's a little confusing. We have a State Archives in Little Rock, but we also have the Arkansas State Archives, which is part of our library. So that's a common confusion.
So does the Arkansas State Archives only hold things that are central to
that's its focus.
In Arkansas, or?
That's its focus. It's part of the idea of preserving documents and whatever records you have that could be archivized in Little Rock. But you would also have collections of maybe someone from Arkansas that's done interesting work around the world and has assembled things put together. So it's a great repository there. One of the things that's happening, part of the reason why this is so central, is that really until the last 15 years or so, an archive was largely a repository of papers or recorded tapes. Back in the 20th century, they had these things called audio cassettes.
I'm familiar with that.
Yeah. Well, you get yourself kind of in a 20th century frame of mind, and you see what was happening in archives in that past, because a lot of it was really a preservationist idea of how do you preserve important documents of the past, which is really important. But as things have become more digitized, what's happened is the idea of the archives has really shifted, that it's not just a repository of stuff anymore, that people working in archives are thinking, people are accessing all this information, they want to learn about it. So a friend of mine runs an oral history archive at the University of Kentucky, and his name's Doug Boyd, and Doug was telling me that in the old days, back in the 20th century, if you had maybe 300 uses of your oral history collection in a year, you were doing great. People literally going to the archive, listening to the tape, and using it for research. If you get 300 of those a year, that was just off the charts good.
Okay.
what they've done now is digitizing things and make it available. You can go to the website. You can easily get 300 hits a day. That's small. All right, so you see this explosion in archives now where all of a sudden it's not just a collection of stuff, but it becomes an integral part of how people are using these historical resources to make sense around them, sometimes just to listen to interesting podcasts or whatever else. So the archivists are really getting excited about the idea of the potential for taking the wealth of content that they have and then figuring out how do they put that on a website and make it accessible for people to really engage with stuff that would be very difficult to get at even 15 and 20 years ago. So this is breaking open. This is a huge area of heritage studies that I find really, really exciting. And Natalie Underberg has written on this, and she has written a lot about adapting some of the older ideas of archives to this new world of media. And she does work at University of Central Florida, so some of this is connected to really high-tech media work, especially with like Disney and other corporations around there, that they have this really interesting media arts program, and they do these interactive websites, real exciting things.
All right, so we're going to get ready to take another quick break, and like this conversation can go on and on, but please stay tuned. I'm going away. We'll be right back after these announcements.
You're listening to Community Conversations on KLEK 102.5 FM. We'll be right back.
We're back with Money Matters. I'm Alfred Edmond Jr. A key component of building wealth is becoming an educated and engaged investor. Whether you're ready to build a portfolio of individual stocks or you just want to be more involved with managing your 401k retirement savings, here's what you need to keep in mind. Know your tolerance for risk. Be aggressive enough to achieve decent earnings, but not so aggressive that you get stressed out by every dip in the stock market. Start and stay diversified, with no more than 5% of your portfolio in any one company, even if that company is the one you work for. Finally, don't try to time the market. Stick to your investment approach without regard to the ups and downs of the stock market. Even when working with a financial advisor, which I recommend, be committed to educating yourself about investing by reading articles in Black Enterprise and other financial media, as well as books on investing. I'm Alfred Edmond Jr. for Money Matters, a product of American Urban Radio Networks.
Money Matters is made possible by the Jonesboro Alumni Chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated, a nonprofit organization dedicated to uncompromising commitment to communities, service, leadership, empowerment. www.jonesboroalumnidst.org.
Money Matters is brought to you by Bancorp South, offering checking, savings, loans, credit cards, and wealth management. 5 locations in Jonesboro to serve you. www.bancorpsouth.com or 870-972-9800.
Arkansas Early Learning prepares children up to 5 years old for kindergarten by offering a secure learning environment, qualified teachers at several locations in Northeast Arkansas at no cost. Applications are available at arearlylearning.org.
Arkansas Early Learning is a nonprofit organization.
Starks Auto Plaza, your pre-owned superstore, is a longtime supporter of KLEK. 2829 Red Wolf Boulevard, Starks offers clean, reliable vehicles of all makes and models. Starks also offers no-hassle pricing, friendly service, financing options with approved credit. At Starks, you're always family, and our motto is, we never say no. 870-203-9980. StarksAutoPlaza.com.
When a woman gives her all to her boyfriend, she is hopeful about the future. Marriage was in her future plans until she received some shocking news. Now with her dream shattered and life altered, she has to pick up the pieces and move forward. It was in this experience that she realized that love has no protection. KLEK 102.5 and Massey Production presents the inspirational gospel stage play, Love Has No Protection, a story that will inspire you, renew, and reaffirm your faith. Featuring performers from all over Arkansas, Texas, and Louisiana, 7 p.m. Saturday, June 24th at the Arkansas State University Student Union. Tickets are $10 in advance, $15 at the door, and can be purchased at KLEK, Cool Cuts, and online at www.klek.org. www.klekfm.org or by calling 870-277-1080. Bring the entire family Saturday, June 24th to the Arkansas State University Student Union to see Love Has No Protection, the inspirational gospel stage play, 7 p.m. This event is a KLEK fundraiser.
Just added a special 3 o'clock p.m. matinee show. That's right, now it's going to be 2 shows, 3 o'clock p.m. and 7 o'clock p.m. The hit gospel stage play, Love Has No Protection, coming to the ASU Student Union Centennial Hall, June 24th. Don't miss it.
Hey, what's up, Jonesboro? This is Hezekiah Walker. I'm so blessed to be on the radio here at KLEK 102.5 FM. Join me for the Hezekiah Walker Show every Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday at 10 o'clock a.m., right after Community Conversations, and every Wednesday night right after your local church Bible study at 8 o'clock p.m. Jonesboro, join me, Hezekiah Walker, and give every praise to our God on KLEK 102.5 FM.
Hezekiah Walker. It's the Hezekiah Walker Show.
Did you know KLEK has a brand new streaming app? That's right, you can listen to KLEK 102.5 FM anywhere in the world. The app is available for all Android phones and tablets, as well as iPhones and iPads. Just search your app store for KLEK and download the KLEK app for free today. And don't miss a beat of the education, entertainment, and empowerment on KLEK 102.5 FM.
And now back to Community Conversations on KLEK 102.5 FM.
Welcome back to Community Conversations on KLEK 102.5 FM. We're speaking with Dr. Gregory Hanson and Mrs. LaDawn
Fuhr.
Okay.
Fewer than.
I'm gonna have to write it like it sounds so that it can stick in my brain. I apologize.
That's okay.
And we're talking about the Connecting to Heritage Studies in the U.S., a consortium event that's coming to Arkansas State University this Friday, June 16th, at the student union in the Mockingbird Room, which is on the 3rd floor. Friday starts off at 8:45 with the roundtable discussions actually starting at 10 a.m. and then also carries over to Saturday, June 17th, also in the Mockingbird Room. The sessions start at 9 a.m. I don't know if we have enough time to go through each single one like in full detail, but we definitely want to hit the high notes of what they can expect on Saturday. And we would also like Mrs. LaDawn to, follow up with any information she'd like to provide and maybe what your role is going to be concerning this event and any other information. We have about 5 to 7 minutes.
Okay. I can give a little idea of some of the conference themes coming out, things to look for. And then I'll have LaDawn talk about her involvement. She's been a great help with getting all the arrangements.
Okay.
It's always nice to have graduate assistants helping out.
Thank you.
Especially good help.
Thank you.
When we put it together, we thought that if we use Friday to lay an idea of having conversations among people in different disciplines, it gives us a basis for working throughout the discipline and an event that way. And then on Saturday, we thought, well, let's go ahead and have something that draws practical examples of research that people have done.
Okay.
And it was fun to go over this because we had a lot better response than I was expecting, actually. And we had quite a few good papers coming in of people coming from all across the U.S. here, so I'm glad to see it. Rodrigo Chicano is an ethnomusicology student at Indiana University, and I wanted to single him out because he has background working with UNESCO, the United Nations Educational, Scientific, Cultural Organization. All right. Okay, yeah, just UNESCO and ICH, and you're all set. You can get a degree in heritage studies. But UNESCO has these guidelines of preserving world heritage, and they have world heritage sites that relate both the natural environment but the built environment. And they also are interested in tangible heritage and preserving that as worldwide resources. But Rodrigo has done work in Peru with music festivals on that. And he's looking at some of the advantages and disadvantages to UNESCO's approach, which is always a hot topic. You can't really talk about heritage unless you bring UNESCO in.
Okay.
It's just kind of fun that I actually heard him do a presentation on a similar topic a couple of years ago at an ethnomusicology conference. And then I ran into him 2 weeks ago at another conference in Bloomington, Bloomington, Indiana, and said, "Yeah, come on down to Jonesboro." So he had arranged that. There'll be a whole variety of different things. I think one of the things that happens is that there's interest in heritage as being something that you can connect to and build a consensus around, and an idea of these are parts of our history that need to be preserved and presented. But it's also a very contested field. You have contesting heritage, and one people saying, "What's my heritage matters to me," and other people saying, "What about my heritage?" The whole discussion of heritage, not hate, and Southern imagery plays into these roles in some really powerful ways, that it's not always a warm, fuzzy notion of heritage, that it can be very dangerous in many respects. So some of these will look at the idea of conflict and tensions, political tensions in heritage. So I think that'll come out. And that was part of the idea of having a critical heritage studies, that we didn't want to make it just say, "Oh, it's heritage, it's great, let's all get together and be happy and celebrate the past." Where they want to call attention to real dangers of celebrating the past too. So the critical heritage is a reminder to think critically and to use heritage to understand some of these political tensions like that too. So that'll be showing up throughout some of these.
Would that fall under where it says mixing oil and water, ontological, epistemological? Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Epistemological, legal, and educational barriers to emancipating heritage.
Yeah, it's in line with the types of things that I'm sure Laura Jane Smith will talk about. One of the things that she is known for is describing what they call the authorized heritage discourse. And what that is that's an idea of heritage being linked to political, economic structures and processes. And there's a dominant idea of what heritage is, if we're going to say American heritage. Okay. And she's interested, how does that form? But then how can that dominant idea of heritage become the authorized heritage discourse? How can that then exclude other voices? So you have a contested heritage coming in and saying, "Wait a second here, that may be your heritage, but you're stepping on my toes," and you're creating a way of interpreting the past that really can distort it and be very dangerous and hold people back. So there's the idea that can you use education about heritage as a way of educating people to be aware of these systemic problems and being more aware of what's at stake when we want to use a term like heritage because of its because of its exact political charges.
All right, Ms. LaDawn, we have about a minute and a half left, so I'm sorry. Give us some
that's okay. We also, on Saturday, from 1:30 to 2:30, Laura Jane Smith will be making her keynote address, and it's free and open to the public. So after in the middle of our presentations and panels on Saturday, June 17th, from 1:30 to 2:30, in the Mockingbird Room in the Carl Law Ring Student Union. I still want to say Ring Center. I was there for the grand opening when I was like 4, so I go way back with that building. As a student, I'm very excited about participating, and in my part, we've been working very hard in a very short period of time to herd cats, as I call it. I have cats, I can say that. It's turning out beautifully, and so my role is just to be on the ground and help out, but hopefully my whole role will be to be a participant and to attend and to learn and to listen, and I just find it to be so exciting that we have this opportunity here.
So will the media department be on hand to take snapshots and archive and...
Well, we do that as well, and hopefully we're going to have a live stream of Laura Jane's. We haven't confirmed that yet, but I have it in the offing to do a live Facebook stream of Dr. Laura Jane Smith's keynote.
Well, I'll be looking out for that. So I can't thank you all enough for joining us today and sharing this wonderful information. I love talking about all types of things, so I will make sure to post some of this information on our Facebook page so that individuals can become aware of it. So thank you for tuning in. I hope you all have a very blessed day.
Thank you for listening to Community Conversations on KLEK 102.5 FM, a program focusing on the people working to